thing that was on my heart this morning when I was thinking about having this conversation is that the Bridesiders, we created it so that we could talk about the good news, like the good things in life. There's a lot about perspective and choosing to look at the bright side, right? And how looking at the bright side is a choice. It's not the absence of difficulty. It's like a healthy response to difficulty.
Because looking at the side of things, yeah, it's a choice because you can do it despite having like
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah. I I think of the idea as like we've gotten so into the idea of like holding a picket sign and educating people, which is fine. Like I'm all for it. And I think that educating is a big deal. I used to think that people who were picketing were just throwing a fit in 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 community. But someone told me one time, they're like, well, what if people don't know? What if it's education? And it's like light bulb. That makes sense to me. But you can go too far the other way. The reality is that there's a lot of times where it's healthy to not engage, right?
Yes. And I'm just saying that based, I was just thinking about my own like personal experience when I'm scrolling through and I see something like on Facebook or somebody's picketing out there and I don't agree with it, that I just get to keep scrolling or drive by without,
Yeah.
you know, it,
Yeah, you don't have to flip them off, and you don't have to. And the truth is, it's like I'm as human as anyone else, and I make mistakes too. But this isn't about like being perfect. This is just about like the reality that we don't have to engage in negativity. Like, can you think of a time where somebody was negative and made it worked into solution?
no.
Yeah. And I mean, that was a pretty quick answer, but I feel like we could think for days and months and not come up with any.
Well, it's not one of those things you have to really think about.
Yeah.
It's, I want to say it's common sense, but it seems to be less common now.
So you think that because the reality is when people get upset, what so my wife and I like have this understanding that there's a difference between like venting and trying needing a solution. And it's really important to figure out like, are you just venting or do you want me to actually help solve this? Because if we're just venting, then trying to solve it is just frustrating.
Mhm.
So there's that level too of what's going on. And it's like, oh my gosh, with humans, there's so much to unravel and experience, and there's just a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like we get so locked into like needing people to know exactly where we come from.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot because this, I mean, this could be, there's so much to that. Like, how do you even scrape the surface on something like that? People feel that, yes, I need people to know how they feel and think about things, right? I'm not pretend to understand, like, right out of the gate this morning, why that is lack of control, or, I mean, there's so much.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's almost like the idea of God or the idea of like whether there's life, other life in the universe, all the things like we could think about it forever and never come to a conclusion. We've gone this long and we don't know. So, you know,
Yeah.
but the idea is,
Some people know.
yeah, I hear you. They no. Yeah. I and that's fine. Like I s- they I'm okay with people believing in something that they don't 100% understand. That And I guess that's what I mean is like, I'm not saying they're not confident in their decision. I'm just saying they can't possibly have 100% certainty about the thing we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yes, about the thing we're talking about.
And
Yes.
not how it impacts them, but just it in reality. Like, for example, God is a big topic, and it's like I know what God is to me. I know what higher power is to me and how it impacts me and my relationship with it. But can I tell you everything about it? Can I give you a full picture of the reality of whatever it is? No, not even close. Not even close. And not a lot of people can. Well, let's say I've never met anyone who can. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who are confident in the topic, right?
Yeah. I I can't remember but anytime I've ever had like because you get those opportunities occasionally to ask people like very in-depth questions about their religion or their beliefs, right? But nobody has an answer for everything.
Yeah.
Um, Nobody that I've talked to anyway.
Well, and that's my point, is that's okay. We don't need to fully understand something to have an opinion, but we also don't need everyone to know what our opinion is.
Well, you said nobody's ever had all of the answers, and you said that's okay. I think it's a really good example of what we're talking about. Is it even like not understanding or not agreeing with something? Just say like, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Agree to disagree. It, someone not that long ago when I was in a group full of men was talking about how, um, not all conflict is bad. And to be honest with you, the idea, the principle of it was like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, what, who's this guy? But when I just thought about it for a second, it's so true. Like it's okay. Conflict doesn't have to be this thing where we're fighting, right? It can just be two opposing ideas or two difference in opinions, um, that are both sharing their idea, and they may not ever agree.
Yeah. Yes, a conflict can be an opportunity to learn and grow. So this comes back to like perception.
100%.
Like
And that, yes.
how are you looking at the situation to say like we disagree on something?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to believe or agree with what he's saying, but there's an opportunity for me to gather some more information here. And if we can do it cordially, we can also build connection and relationship, even if we disagree.
Yeah. And how do you think we do that?
Well, by holding space for other beliefs and thoughts,
Yeah.
right?
And finding similarities, right?
Sure.
It's letting go of the differences and finding similarities. It's like some of these posts I see online where people say, like, if you believe X, then get off my Facebook
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's like, I really, well, and here's the like, transparently, I respond to those things by going on Facebook and saying, dude, I love you no matter what. No matter what you believe, no matter what you think, because it's freaking true. And I honestly like how I feel is that somewhere along the line, nice was made fun of so much because of whatever hippies, because of like, the earth people or like,
Fifties. It's,
is it not a thing anymore? Am I not supposed to say
I don't
that?
know. I just think
I think they might call themselves that. I don't know. I don't know.
okay.
People that don't wear deodorant and like,
Okay.
but it's okay. I'm not judging. I'm just saying like they love the earth and they don't want to put chemicals on their body and whatever. But I'm just saying like I had know a lot of those people and I love them so much. The principle is that like there are people who are sensitive to it and they're like, oh God, like
Yeah.
this belief, this thing is happening. Same with spirituality and religion. It's like certain pastors or certain people in the community where there people are like, oh, here they go again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like people allow those situations to create the essence of what somebody believes about a certain thing.
Yeah.
And I hate it because like it's okay to love without being like, oh my God, the whole earth is beautiful and
Yeah.
you know.
It's unrealistic. I mean, it is for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody that I know doesn't walk around like that. Nobody is floating 3 inches off the ground with
Yeah.
you know, butterflies and music.
Yeah, and
Like,
it a perfect example is like meditation. People see meditation as like okay, not I shouldn't say that. There are people out there who see meditation as like this thing where people are like, Buddha or sitting with their hands like this, trying to like cast spells or whatever. When right?
no, I don't think people meditate and try to cast spells. I think you're thinking of two completely
Well,
different belief
whatever.
systems.
I don't think so because I think people worry about this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Uh, and so like everybody knows what I mean. Like there are things can get a little weird sometimes, and but it doesn't have to be like correlated with those things.
Right.
It's okay to just like love people.
Mhm.
And for me, like what I found in my relationships is that if I can't be selfless enough to go 99% of the way when someone is only able to go 1% of the way, then it's very difficult for that relationship to work.
Yeah, but we can't spend all of the time going 99% of the way.
Why?
Well, because we're going to get burnt out. We can't take all of our relationship to go 99% of the way. Sometimes we have to agree to go 50 or 60, right? But
Yes.
you know what I mean? We can't do that with every relationship and every encounter because that's
Sure.
exhausting.
Sure. And I didn't necessarily say that. I'm just saying we have to be willing to do that, right? The all the time or even often I didn't go that far. I think the principle of being willing to go 90 or 99% of the way ever
Mm.
is just the way of kindness,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair. Yeah.
And especially in a relationship, whether it's, a significant other, family, there will be, you have your strengths and I have my strengths. And maybe my strength is in conflict resolution and your strength is in, not taking things too seriously. And, depending on the scenario that we're up against, you may be better off going 99% of the way because I don't have the capacity to handle it. And I may be in another circumstance. So it wouldn't necessarily be all the time. I think you work with the strengths of the other people, and I think as long as you're willing, that's like the goal. That's the thing I'm talking about is like the willingness to do most of the effort ever at any point.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
And I know for me, like when someone's willing to go I mean, I there are to moments where I just don't have it, and I'm a highly emotional person. I mean, I feel like I'm too emotional sometimes. It's a judgment, but it's like it's heavy, it's hard, it's challenging to like where a lot of people can like hold back a tear. I just can't, and it's like here I am being a mess, and it's just a lot. And you're up against like people, you know, oh, he's crying. People are crying. I even feel like that sometimes when someone's crying, it's like, oh, how do you respond to this? It's just challenging.
Yeah. I mean, how I respond to situations and people in positions like that tells me a lot about how I'm doing on the inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just not, I don't have it in me, right? There's like all this stuff going on maybe that was one of the days that I scrolled through and said something I didn't need to say to somebody on Facebook, right? Uh, and yes, but it tells me a lot about how I'm doing inside, my patience and tolerance for other people's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What an important thing here to acknowledge is that's okay. Like we have a capacity. Me and my team do capacity checks every single day because if we don't know and our capacity is different moment to moment, right?
Mm.
But we can't spend all day doing it. So what we do is we have a 15-minute period at the very middle of the day where we have a capacity check and we check in on each other and individually say, this is where I'm at. And then each of us individually can say, oh, well, I'm gonna jump in and help you because it sounds like you're overwhelmed or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's super, super important, not only for like telling other people, but just acknowledging like I'm just not there today. and that's okay. You know, another thing of mine is like there's no such thing as leave your problems at the door because we are humans. We are the same human we are outside that door as we are inside the door.
Yes, you're not wrong. It can be really hard to do that, to like leave work at work and leave. There are like tools and techniques for navigating some of that stuff. Um, but really there's something I use and I train or I talk about when in the training, right? Is this healthy compartmentalization, taking some of that stuff that is overwhelming and hard to deal with, and then putting it away, right?
Yeah.
Doing your job, focusing on whatever it is you got to focus on, and then coming back to that, talking about it with your director, your supervisor, your, sponsor, friend, whatever it is. But because if you don't, we know what happens when we stick things in compartments and we don't come back and address them, right? It comes out in other ways. Um, so I think healthy compartmentalization is a really good skill for people to, and it's not easy, but to work on,
Yeah,
right?
it's really hard. Do you think one of those ways is just talking about it?
Yeah,
Like even in the
100%.
moment, just
Yep.
like at least getting a part of it off my chest and then, we can talk about the rest later.
Yeah, it can just, there's sometimes like, especially when you're doing, and because you did direct services, peer services, sometimes we're out working with somebody and it's just us, and they may say something that's activating to us, and already got other stuff going on, and then we're in a position where things are feeling real heavy, but we still have a job to do. I think
Yeah.
that's a really good example of maybe how we just put it away. Um, do our job to the best of our ability and then come back and address that. But I think in other scenarios, other situations, I think yes, there's times where we can say, hey, here's where I'm at, here's how I'm feeling. Like this is I just needed to say that. We can move on and come back and talk about the rest later. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of that is capacity check in what we include in it. An important thing to acknowledge here is like what you're saying. I believe what you're saying so much, and I'm signed on to it because the reality is we're saying the same thing. The difference is that what I'm saying is that we can't force upon people them acting like their problems don't exist. And to me, that's what leave your problems at the door says.
Yeah. Okay.
It's come in here and lie about the way you feel until you're done with your day, and then you can go feel that way out there.
Yes.
And I'm not a fan of that.
I mean, essentially, that's that. Yes.
And I don't think people realize it. So, it was best practice for a long time. There are a lot of things that were taught what I think are incorrectly, and we're learning that, and we're not doing those things anymore. But that's the importance of that is like they're still the same human they are in here that they are out there, and they're not going to just be better because I say you need to just be better.
Right. And I think some of that maybe isn't that you leave that stuff at the door. I think it's more that you leave how you respond to it at the door. Because I mean, we're essentially, if we're coming in here, right, still paid employees, still have a job to do. Somebody couldn't come in here after having an argument with their significant other and be an asshole and there not
Yeah,
be a problem, right? I think
absolutely.
it's the response to it. Yes, everybody has stuff, and we're always carrying shit around, right? But then how how people respond to it, how they conduct themselves, I think that's how I perceive it. You just
Yeah.
leave that shit at the door, do your job or whatever it is you got to do, and then pick it up on your way out. Right?
So this is where delivery and perspective are so important to me because like I'm a firm believer in like your words create a reality. And so why this is the not like we're doing anything wrong, but this is the what I believe creates a healthier environment in our life and in relationships is focusing on solutions. So
Yeah.
instead of leave your problems at the door, it's hey, put others first. Today, let's put others first, right? Because it's focused solution based. It's not problem based. Leave your problems at the door says like, don't be you. It's problem focused. It's not solution focused. But hey, put others first today is solution focused in a way that's like, okay, I think I can do that, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, we know from our experience, I know it's very vague, but we can go into in more detail later, that when we do things for other people, put other people first, we get outside of ourselves, which
Yeah.
not just changes how we respond to things, but literally how we feel about them.
Yeah. And
Right?
ourselves.
Sure.
That's the crazy part. Like I'm dealing with this right now where um, I have a lot of like I have a lot of things that affect me in a way that feels negative
Mm.
that are happening due to the chemicals in my brain and all, the things, even though I'm doing a lot of making a lot of good choices and I'm eating healthy and I'm working out, I'm doing all the things, I'm still working through a lot of stuff. And some of that is a lot. I mean, oh my gosh, I go through so much in lack of confidence.
I know. I mean, I get it. I when I came in this morning, we were just talking about. I was like, I didn't want to wear a hat, but my hair wouldn't do what I wanted to. And then I had a vest on, and we both had a vest on, and I was uncomfortable with that. And then my chair was the wrong height, and my stomach. It's one of those days for me too. And I get it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we're brothers. We a lot of the stuff that we navigate, it's pretty closely aligned.
Yeah. Well, and I recently I was talking to my sponsor and we were having this conversation and a light bulb went off for me. It's like I'm so selfish. Like the fact that I walk into like a room full of people, or I walk into a
Yeah.
podcast where I want to make a positive impact, and I'm like, all I can think about is me, 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 me,
I know.
me.
Yes. That's why I chuckled when you said that. I was like, the realization that what makes me so important that people care about that as much as I do?
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah,
Not saying that I'm not important to people, but saying that that idea in my head that that's the first thing that people are going to think about. Oh,
yeah,
he shouldn't be wearing a hat. Is wild. Because I even said like does my stomach look weird in this? And then as you were talking, I realized I was sitting here saying, "Great, you just told people to look at your stomach, right?"
I love it.
Oh,
Yeah,
me doing a
it
spiral.
it's a dangerous place,
It's wild.
and not only that, but like every single time we think something like that, you don't just bring attention to other people when you bring it up. You do that same thing to yourself every time you think it.
Mhm.
So now you're in this loop of like, I feel crappy about myself. I don't like this about me. I don't like that about me. And you're convincing yourself, right? And so the impact that we can have on other people when we're continuously convincing ourselves that we're not enough is not very good.
Yeah, it's about the stories that we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Well, and I think we might have touched on this last time. Uh, but whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So we we tell ourselves these stories about ourselves and then they become reality because that's whatever you're pumping in here, it it filters onto the rest of it,
Yeah.
right? And it yeah, yes, I'm so important that people care about all these things that I care about with my it's wild. It's a vicious cycle, is what it is.
Yeah. And it's just like bringing up the negative about someone else, bring this back full circle is like it has the same impact whether we're talking to us or we're talking to other people.
Mm.
If it's not solution focused, it's only creating negativity. And if we're upset about something, we're normally upset about it because it doesn't agree with us or we don't like it or we want it to change. If that's the truth, if we're that upset that we want it to change, why are we not doing something to make it change? Why instead are we feeding into it being worse? Because that's what we do when we get upset and we decide that we want them to understand that they're wrong. Oh my God, like my road rage. I have the worst road rage. People get out of the left lane. When you're driving the same speed as the person on the right, get out of the way. Okay? But I become my worst self when there's a person in the left lane. I'm like,
Can confirm.
yeah. No, like, I explain because they don't know, but I feel like I'm a pretty healthy person for the most part. But when if I'm in a slow car driving or I'm in my fast car driving, doesn't matter. It's like you just just move out of the way. but I become my worst self in that moment, and I like is flipping off legal in Oregon?
It's considered road rage, and road
Oh, it's
rage.
not. We've talked
No.
about this because I
Yeah.
looked it up, and it's road rage, but it's not illegal. So sometimes I will flip people off because I get so upset.
But road rage is illegal.
No, to a degree. Remember, we looked this up where the road rage itself isn't the problem. It's when you're putting someone else in danger,
Hmm.
which flipping off doesn't. Remember, we had this conversation. That's fine. You're getting old. So it's like, you don't have to remember everything.
Okay.
You're becoming
Thank you
mom
for
quickly,
giving me
but
permission not to remember everything.
well, I didn't
Oh,
want you to be
well, you
hard on
said that.
yourself. I love saying that kind of stuff to people because I'm so hard on myself.
Yeah, I could take a joke.
Oh, shoot. No, so the reality is like, I say that only because like I'm human. I'm not preaching anybody. I'm not telling anybody
Right.
anything. I'm just saying that, when I get to the point of flipping someone off or speeding around them or whatever, it's there. I haven't solved anything. I didn't make anything better. They're gonna do it again to the next person.
Yes. But you've known this for a while now.
And I continue to do it. So that's the human condition for me is that, you know, uh, knowing something, having the knowledge is a very small part of creating the change. And what I can say from personal experience is that even though I've known it for a while and I know better, it definitely doesn't feed into it feeling better. But when I do that, nothing gets better. I only feel worse. And so that's the idea of this is like, if I want someone to move, like, why am I not pulling up to them at a store and be, because this would never solve anything. But if I wanted to actually try, then I would do something like try to educate people on the fact that you pass in the left lane and
I'm just thinking about that, like pulling up next to me to convenience store and like, hey,
excuse
I'm
me.
gonna take this moment to educate you about the laws of traffic.
And they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I would love to just sit here and listen to you tell me this." Which is why I've
Uh,
probably never done it, which is why I think it
okay,
pisses me off so bad.
so I'm proposing an experiment
Oh,
that next time you feel road rage, you do this. Here's the only problem is now you're following somebody after you've clearly been upset, and that's usually
when they call the cops.
yeah, or
Yeah.
they get their concealed weapon, right? But
Yeah.
I propose that you try it.
To go have a conversation with them?
Yeah.
No way.
You're not gonna want to educate somebody?
No, man. That's so pompous, dude. That's the problem. It's like so this is my point. There's no actual solution to this problem.
There is.
What is it?
You change how you respond to those feelings.
100%. That's what I'm saying. So the the only way to have a positive impact on this thing is to not get to that point, right? It's to do something differently.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's my point. So that I love that you said it because that's the idea is that's this perspective idea. The idea that I think people forget or maybe never even comprehend or think about the fact that our reality is simply our view at any given moment, our view on our life.
Yeah, sure.
And so the best way to change the way we feel about our life is to change the way we view it.
Perception.
So it's kind of like, when we were young and they were teaching you, well, like turn around and walk away from the bully,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I believe in that. And I do believe that it's a solution in some ways. But that's why they teach it and not just like just punch him in the throat because it doesn't feed into anything getting better.
Yeah, that's a hard subject too because it's not sure as adults, but you remember what it was like to be a kid.
Oh yeah.
Right? If you didn't do anything, you didn't stand up for yourself, you were the weak one. You were became a target, right? So you had two
Yes.
options. Well, listen to the old people who aren't going through it now, or be weak. And I'm not saying that from my perspective, I'm
For
saying that
sure.
from society,
For
right?
sure.
This is just what it's a
Well,
cruel.
and time was a lot different then. Back then coaches told basketball players to bring their knee into a chest when they jumped up to get a ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And teachers were standing there while I was being thrown in a ball pin, one that had a lock on it and was like literally 7 feet tall. So they threw me up into the hole, and then I got stuck in the hole. And the teacher was right there when it happened, and I got left there. Like times were different,
Yeah, that's fair.
and I was like, when, as we know, and this is a topic that comes up with you and I often because you were the cool kid and I was the nerdy kid, but
Oh, how things have changed.
the the reality is like, I get into dance and dance makes me feel somewhat confident. And then they put makeup on me to be on stage. And then I find that my insecure self really enjoys my face looking like it did when I had makeup on. So I started sneaking and wearing makeup. And
We're
then
going there, Harvey.
yeah,
Okay. All right.
but I won't throw you under the bus. You could
It's
throw
okay.
you um but I that when people kids found out.
Well, let's not jump ahead. How did kids find out?
And tell us.
Yeah, so um I saw you putting on makeup in the bathroom. Hmm, that's hard because I know it's funny because we can laugh about it now, but um it's probably one of my bigger like regrets like growing up. Because what I did, so I went to school and told everybody. I'm like, this dude wears makeup, right? Um, yeah. I mean, we had a lot of laughs. It was not you and me, but me and everybody else.
Yeah, at my expense. Yeah.
Uh, well, yeah, at everybody's expense. But yes, this particular instance was at your expense. Um, but well, I don't want to justify it. We just didn't get along that well growing up. Like
Yeah.
we had a lot of things. Yeah, so I pretty much like destroyed high school for you. I mean, you had some part in that because of other things,
Oh yeah.
right?
It was
But
already.
that I just really hammered it home.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't continue going to school much long after that.
right,
And I got beat up twice from it. Well, people used it as an excuse to beat me up and call me gay and call me a fag and do all the things that like back then were honestly pretty normal. That was a pretty normal thing back then.
right.
So I love that we've shifted into like kindness and love and not tearing people down. I think we've gone too far the other way where we're being too overly sensitive. Because I think like
Right. On that note, I know I interrupt you, but on
you're
that
fine.
note, I can't wait for somebody to give their opinion in the comments about that.
Yeah, I know. It's like this is well,
Mm,
and here's the thing.
social media.
I know. And here's the thing. I'm not gonna read the comments. A. B, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I love the idea of like people being able to speak freely about their opinions.
Yeah.
And I again, I've come from a world where I was such a bad addict and I made so many bad decisions and I did so many bad things before I had gotten sober that I have no room to judge anybody for anything. And I know what it feels like to be the kid who drops out of school because he's being picked on. And I know what it's like to feel so unconfident that you feel like you're going to pee yourself when you walk into a room full of people. Like that's my life. So I don't judge anybody, but I do know that when we're being more sensitive than the person we're being sensitive about, it's codependency. Like it verges on this like realm of I saw a comedy show one time where and it was like on one of the streaming services, but where the he said says a joke about someone who's in a wheelchair, and then someone freaks it. Did you ever see it?
No, but I mean, it's just my brain does what it wants. So
So there's a guy that like freaks out and he starts like sticking up for this guy who's in a wheelchair in the front row.
yeah,
And basically the guy in the wheelchair is like, if I'm not upset, like why are you upset?
yeah,
And the
yep.
comedian's like, why are you upset? Like this guy is laughing and he's in a wheelchair. And I think that's where it like becomes you can weaponize it when you start going that way. Like not saying anything because it might offend somebody.
Yeah. And I think inherently, uh, people need something to fight for. A lot of people just really need some sort of conflict, right?
Mm,
Because it adds some purpose to their message or whatever the reason is. I'm not going to pretend to know, but I think that's a prime example.
yep.
Um, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of there's other social experiments that kind of touch on the same thing.
Yeah, it's again, I feel like it's part of the human condition where, I it's such a challenge because the truth is like w with everything in mind, the more we try to figure out, the more convoluted it gets, the more, we feel like we're opening our minds, but the truth is like it's just more information. It's just more stuff to focus on. There's just so much in this world. And I feel like if we could just slow down for a second, like, I got sober 11 years ago and went from, a homeless, using a drug addict who lived on the streets to like having this incredible life that I have. And just like proving that anyone can come back from anything.
Hmm.
But, but not only that, but like I would say a lot of my success, other than like higher power, I mean, 99% of my success is the fact that I allow other people to have an impact on my life and I get out of my own way. But on the things I'm involved in, I feel like a lot of that is I'm just choosing a positive perspective. I'm just choosing to focus on growth and love and the things that are going to feed solution. And it makes a huge impact on my life. And I don't want to preach to anybody. I just want people to understand that if they just try it, it feels better. When we get in a situation where my wife believes that she's right, and whether or not she is or not, like I have my truth, and say even she ends up admitting that she was wrong, I'm not feeding solution when I make sure she knows she was wrong. It just doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't
I
work.
used to live for those moments, right? If you would have listened to what I said,
Yeah.
right, all the time, and I thought that over time it would change behaviors, right? But I just over time it just started to not feel very good. This "I told you so" BS. Ugh,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good anymore.
Yeah, and I even when it felt good, was it
No,
actually good?
counterproductive.
Yeah.
People don't need to be told "I told you so." They already know.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, the people that are like in our lives, like daily. Some people don't know, right? And they'll go to the grave saying, that they were right. Um, but it does way more harm than good. I think that's so. We've definitely we know where one of the challenges is here, right? So what's the solution?
I think the solution is something you talked about in compartmentalizing. So, like a practice that I used that a mental health coach taught me once was, in the idea of like, um, when I came to work, I would sit, I still do. I sit in my vehicle for 5 minutes before I come into work, and I separate my morning from work so that I can attempt to focus on others through in my day without allowing the things that have happened that morning to make too much of an impact on my life. And it's the same when I go home. I sit and most importantly, when I go home, sitting in my car for 5 minutes and like decompressing and allowing the stuff. I mean, what I do for a living is very challenging, and we all have jobs that are very challenging in different ways. I'm not. It's definitely not more challenging than anybody else it's facing, but in its way, it's right now especially. It's just extremely volatile and extremely stressful, and people aren't often like happy to talk to me. Right? They're talking to me because something's wrong,
Right.
and that's hard. It's just like I want love and I want things to just feel good. But it's not a reality where bad things don't happen. And bad things are super important. So part of the solution is recognizing like it's okay for things to not feel good. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not agree with someone. It's like we don't have to make everything a big deal. It doesn't have to all be so big.
I wish that people really heard that though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because why do we have to give people our opinions on everything?
Yeah.
Why do we have to disagree and say sideways things to people on social media?
When we know it doesn't feed into
And
solutions.
it's not going to change anything.
No, it will change. It will make it worse.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's not gonna. No, you're not gonna give somebody your shitty opinion on Facebook,
Yeah.
right? And then have them say, "You, oh, you know what? I hadn't thought about it that way."
Yeah.
Right? And arguing with people, and if I know anything about people, is that when we argue with people and they have to come up with more reasons to defend their position, they become more rooted in it. So
Yes.
when we argue with people, we're helping them stay the same, stay in the
Yes.
same thought pattern, same beliefs, all that stuff.
Except for extending the bridge between the two people, right? We're
The
creating
wedge, yeah.
we're creating more of a distance, we're creating more of a separation between the two people, and they've put another root in the ground and locked into their
Mhm.
opinion. And there are those people that like they're attempting to get that out of you. And so once they've got one of the things that I never learned in school that would have helped me a lot if I had a dad who taught me how to like, do anything in a healthy way is somebody would have said like every time people are making fun of you, it doesn't mean they're making fun of you. Maybe they're just being funny. No one ever said that to me. So anytime anyone made a joke, I always thought it was about me, whether it was or it wasn't.
Mhm.
And every time someone made a joke about me, which was every time, then I got upset
Can confirm.
because they're judging me,
Yep.
right? But I didn't realize like people can be saying something that's just funny
Mhm.
in a way that they're trying to relate with me. Like it's kind of like when we're growing up and boys hit girls because they like them. They're not abusive necessarily. They're just like that's their understanding of like trying to get someone's attention. But it's not healthy. It's not
So,
positive.
yes, we're talking about very, very small, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not dragging them by
Yeah.
their hair. We're not doing any of that. But yeah, it's
And that's one of my problems, right? Or not my problems, but it's a challenge for me not to take things that are like uncomfortable or heavy subjects and throw a joke in there. And it's what it is a defense mechanism. I use it to get through a lot of like heavy stuff. And still I'm transitioning out of that as I get older and I'm trying to become more professional is timing, right? Because they're and knowing your audience. But that's I want to make a joke about everything, right? Because if we're in an uncomfortable position or situation, then I can make a joke, we can laugh. And in that time where we're laughing, right? We're connecting and we're not thinking about anything else. And it's also can be unhealthy. So,
do
and
you
that's what happened there. We don't think that abuse is funny. It's
but see, this is a part of my thing is
yeah.
like I know that it's important that people understand it and it's important to you that people know that you're not saying abuse is okay. But to some degree, it's my opinion, and my opinions can be wrong, that you've over-adjusted slightly.
Yeah.
Because you like humor is your superpower. You're so funny. Everybody knows it. Like growing up, I wanted to be you because everyone always like, he that Jesse's so funny. And you are. And they're not wrong. I was just jealous. But the you're now in a place where like you're so from a good place. You're worried about how things are going to impact people and the things you say or do. But I believe it's my opinion that you've gone too far because now you're it's not that it's not cool and great that you're sensitive to people. That's awesome. But when you've over adjusted to the point where like who you are has changed because of the fact that you're too afraid of people getting upset about something, that's where I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect in the world in a lot of ways. Like I love the kids are getting picked on less. I love that. I wish I could have wore sweatpants and not gotten beat up when I was in school, right? And now sweatpants are cool. But it's like we when we go so far that we're afraid to like when I don't know, man. I hear comedians say a lot of hilarious things that are very judgy and hurtful,
Mhm.
but they're hilarious, and you can just choose not to listen to that comedian.
Yes.
And isn't it true that like having an opinion is okay, and as long as you don't direct it at somebody, that there's this is what we're talking about is it's okay to have conflict. It's okay to think differently. It's okay to say something that might upset somebody. So that's like my thing is I don't want you to lose that because it's literally like you some of the reason that I'm sober is because you taught me through your humor how to not take myself too seriously. You taught me how to unleash a part of me that makes people laugh.
Mm.
And sometimes I'm very careful about what I say, but sometimes I'm not. And then I get to apologize for that. And it's okay to like yesterday after a meeting, somebody walked up to me and she goes, "Oh, I'm chasing you around for a reason." And she had been literally chasing me around the room, but I didn't realize it. If I would realize, I
Right.
would turn around. You saw it,
I
right?
well, I caught the very beginning of that conversation, but I just kind of walked away because it felt like it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I was sad you left without a second hug. But the what happened was is when and she has some respect for me and what she shared that she has some respect for me and this is why it impacted her, but she was speaking and she was looking at me and me she didn't know this, but I'm having a conversation with you without looking at you and we're laughing about something, but she thinks that I'm laughing about something she says. She happens to be talking about higher power in the moment, so when she walks up to me she says,
Well, that actually makes sense.
yeah. So she's like explaining to me like why her higher power is so important to her and then apologizing for offending me. And quite honestly, in some scenarios, I would be like, this is you being too sensitive. But I don't think it was because she was doing it with a viewpoint of like outward respect. She was coming to me saying, like, I respect you as a person and I'm sorry if I upset you with the thing I said. She didn't. And it's crazy to think that because like I think the same as her. But there is that thing, that sensitivity that happens. And I think that
Hmm.
regardless of whether or not we aim it at somebody, somebody is going to receive it
Yeah.
negatively. There's going to be what I call the 1%, where 1% of the people minimum are going to hate anything we do, you know?
At times higher, depending on where we're at, what we're doing.
Minimum, yeah.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's 50% plus whatever. But I think where my I have learned to like reassess my gauge is like, am I directing this at someone or a group? Or like and am I shaming them? Am I saying something negative? Or am I just saying like, you know, there are I love doing like impressions. And my kids hate it because my kids are from the sensitive point where they're like, I'll say like Miss Swan. You looking like a man, yeah. And they'll be like, Dad, that's
I,
racist. And
I
I'm just
know
like,
some things didn't age well, but
but I think it's so funny and I love
it
it.
is funny. I mean, we grew up with Miss Swan and Mad TV and in Living Color and all that
Yeah,
stuff, you know?
yeah. And when we just came back from London and I had never left the country, so it was a very cool experience. But they're there, everything they say, I want to repeat it
Oh yeah.
because it just sounds so cool.
Mhm.
And it's like, hearing a grown adult who is like, I'd like some sticky toffee pudding. I'm just like, every and I'm just like, and here's the thing: it's like I'm not making fun of them. I think it's freaking adorable. Like I think it's I like the cool. I think it's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, yeah.
But anytime I do like any type of accent, my family's like looks at me like, well, there are people who can hear you.
No, I get it. Yes. I know. 100%. Eh, eh, what breaks my brain is that other we have accents to other people. We had this woman come through the training in this last training from New Zealand, and just it's the best accent. But you feel compelled to do that, and it's like
Yeah,
yeah, I even like as a facilitator, like standing there, and I'm supposed to be a professional capacity. I had to try really hard not to do that
yeah,
because it's natural for
yeah.
me.
Well, and then my kids started doing it. It was like my daughter was like, "Get on the trolley,"
Oh God.
and it's like I I enjoy it, but I can see, like, I can also see that realm where, and here's the thing, I don't think it's wrong to like be sensitive to it. I don't, I'm a sensitive person, an ultra sensitive person. The sensitivity isn't the problem, in my opinion. The problem is when like we bring it into the world as a negative thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but even if we don't, and we touched on this, even if we don't mean it to be negative, people will perceive it that way.
Yes.
So then where does the responsibility lie in somebody's perception and our intent?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, do we live our lives walking around worrying about this every time we say anything? That's when I feel the sensitivity has gone too far.
I
So,
guess, well, that's really hard because I had to change some things in order to do what I do, right?
yes,
Had
some
to.
things, yes.
And when and where my humor was and the jokes that I made have changed significantly, and they had to because I love what I do for work, but I worked with like a, just a, I don't know how to say it, a diverse, I'll go with that, diverse group of people. And 99% could think it was funny, but if it's the one, then I have to do some explaining and then try to navigate like how can I repair that relationship as a facilitator and a participant. And in order to avoid that stuff, I've made some large changes. I
Yeah.
had to.
Well, it's like, well, here's the thing. There's some expectation there, and I think there is a healthy reality to this, which is like when you come to work, you dress a certain way. It's the same principle where it's like I love to wear hoodies all the time. They're just so comfortable. But I'm not coming to work in a hoodie, right? I have to make some adjustments to be respectful, to be, what I need to be. And I don't there are things that I need to change my behavior. I wouldn't talk all the time like I would out there when I'm working. There,
I wear hoodies to
we make
work.
adjustments. Yeah, you get to. I'm so jealous. But
But I want to
you don't gotta
dress
throw
like
that in my
you. But I
face.
want to dress like you when I go to work.
That's
Isn't that
funny.
wild?
It is wild. I mean, I think we want what we don't do, or we want what we don't have. It's the
It's fair.
craziest thing.
Grass is greener on the other side. BS.
Yeah.
I heard somebody once say that if the grass is greener on the other side, you just need to water your grass.
Yeah. So good.
I don't,
Quote, anonymous. We don't know. It's not us. We're not taking
yeah,
credit.
I don't know who said it, where I heard it.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing is like to s- to some degree we have a responsibility to do our best to be in a relationship with people that we're sharing our reality with in that moment. And that relation is simply it's them in relation to you, right? That's a relationship regardless of what that looks like. Even if they're an enemy, they have that relation to you. And I feel like we do have a responsibility when it comes to that. But I also believe that genuine is very important. And genuine's become this big word where people are misusing it, in my opinion, and it's become just this big thing. But the truth is like genuine is just like being unapologetically yourself from a place of love and compassion. That's
Hmm.
how I feel.
I wish that we could change the, I don't know, I don't like saying I wish, but wouldn't it be amazing if we could get that message across that yes, be you, don't apologize for being you, but if something goes south and you hurt somebody, own that with
Yeah, yeah,
humility.
yeah.
But then the other
Even
side
if you're
of
not
that,
wrong.
yes, but the other side of that is that if you're offended by something somebody does or says, express that to them with compassion and intentionality. Because if
Absolutely.
those two things are happening, then we could agree to disagree,
Yes.
which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I wish it happened more. I really do. And I think the solution, and this is what I tell my sponsees, this is what I tell a lot of the families that I coach and stuff when we're talking about like recovery. But I feel like it's life in general is like put down the sword and put down the shield because you don't need them. You don't need to fight anybody off. You don't need to protect yourself from all the things. Our protection, our fight or flight, it was built into our bodies so that when we were going to die, we could stay alive.
Yes.
And over time, we have started, our bodies have learned to stress out and panic about most things. Not everybody. I know a lot of people who can stay pretty calm and collected, like my wife, in really crazy situations. But anybody who has experienced like trauma or abuse or anything where fight or flight has become like a higher trigger, then we start triggering like we're in danger often
Hmm.
when we're not.
Yeah, especially the way that the world is, the state of it, is that, I mean, we're even like road rage, right? Just ton of cortisol into your system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're feeling in traffic the way you should feel when you think there's a lion chasing you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, recently I've talked about this a lot because there's a lot of new things coming out in the addiction world where they're finding that that compulsion is created from the imbalance in the chemical, where the chemical just starts spewing all over like just constantly when we're not in danger, and then we become addicted to that.
Sure. Yeah, I know lots of people who just live in a toxic state. They have to. They have to be arguing with people or fighting with people or stand their ground on something that's unnecessary. Just have to have toxic relationships. And I mean, you've seen it, right? We've been there,
We
right?
have been
We
it,
have to,
that person.
that's where that's this constant state of, the owner acted just toxic is what it is. Yeah.
Very toxic. And here's the thing, and we can't, we people like who are struggling in that place, I feel like it's much like addiction in the sense of like they're living on the street, they feel hopeless, they're treating people crappy because their life is crap. And, like coming from that was my life. Um, but I feel like this scenario is all very similar to that. But what we have to be willing to see is that like we can't like with addiction, we can't just change somebody. We're not going to say something that's just going to make them be like, oh my God, that's, I don't know why, but I just received that differently this time, and I'm going to stop treating people like crap.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it happen, but it's really, and what really matters is where people are at open-minded, right? If they're open-minded, if they're willing to accept new ideas, and then the delivery from the other person. But you need things from both sides.
Yeah, it's a relationship.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like where this is the thing. I'm so hopeful, dude. I believe anybody can change anything. I
Hmm.
really do believe that. The point that I'm making is that we don't have control over that though, right?
Right.
Other people are going to do what they're going to do. And normally, when they're the kind of person that is going to spew unhealthy or negative things, they're not normally the kind of person who's just going to hear us out.
Sure.
And there are exceptions to everything, and whatever. But the idea that we're just like it's what this image of like bashing my head into a brick wall to help somebody else change.
Yeah. Well, that comes back to being willing to go 99% and somebody is not willing to do 1%.
Yeah, and
That's
that's where the
essentially, I
exhaustion
see,
happens.
yes, people bashing their head into a brick wall.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so the reality is it's like if we can't change them, then the best impact that we can have is through love, is just being kind,
Acceptance.
having acceptance. I have these two rings on that I bought when I was at an event recently, and I have the words facing me because I this is not for other people to know. This is for me to remind myself.
Right.
They say acceptance and surrender because I often need to look down and go, am I willing to accept this the way it is? And I most times I decide yes. And acceptance means it is what it is without any need for change, right? This situation is meant to be, it's here, it's, and then surrender is the idea of like, I don't always have to be in control. Surrender is like just putting down the sword, putting down the shield, stopping the fight. We don't have to fight. We're not at war. It might feel like it, but we're not. And when you have put that stuff down and you've like stopped fighting, it's possible to love. a lot more than it is when we feel like within that fight or flight. When I lift my sword and when I lift my shield, I know that people know that I'm ready for war. And it creates this reality where I can't be like, but I love ya, you know?
Right.
I have to
Right.
fight now because it's like pulling your shirt off and standing in front of a guy and putting your arms up. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you've started something you're not just going to be able to like turn around and walk away from most likely. And so where my point is like make a decision before you put your arms up, before you take your shirt off, and just think like, am I going to be able to make a positive change in this situation or am I not? Because if I'm not feeding into solution, I'm feeding into problem.
Yes. What's really hard for me is like especially like all the political stuff. And I don't like to talk about politics. I don't get notifications on my phone. Like I tend to just kind of navigate around those conversations, but there's so many different like views and thoughts on the political stuff and this guy and that guy and this lady and that lady and these and but in order to do that I have to avoid it completely,
Yes.
which I don't like
Yeah.
because then I'm uninformed. But I'd rather be uninformed about the politics than to try to navigate it. And because when it comes to that stuff, some people don't budge. They believe what they believe, and
Yeah.
they're willing to die on that hill. And I avoid it altogether because I don't watch news.
Yeah.
I don't get news stuff. There's sometimes things happen and I don't find out until other people start talking about it because I
Yeah.
don't get notifications. I feel like that news and politics is like poison that is being pumped into my system, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But
And
they
you're
don't.
not missing a lot.
Right, I know, but then also I'm uninformed, right? And I'm supposed to vote and I'm supposed to believe in these things and I'm supposed to take a stance on something, but I just I don't
Yeah,
want
but
to.
here's the
I
difficulty
don't
in
want
this
to.
that I don't think people realize is that there's so much misinformation. There's so many opinions. And the problem is that when we're listening to things with a reality that whatever they're saying is true, because we have to, because we don't nobody has time to sit around and fact check everything.
Well, some people do, but I don't. I don't.
Okay, that's a good point. I sure as hell do not have time to sit around and fact check everything. So
Why? How many
I
kids you got? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, too many, but they're all getting older finally. So but that's the reality is like if I don't have time to fact check it, then all I'm basing my opinion off of if I thought this is the route we're going is whether or not I believe them.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's the trap. Is everybody sitting around like choosing to believe a side or choosing to believe a person or choosing to do this thing? It's like, yeah, Pluto's a planet. Yeah, until it's not. That's the thing. You know?
Those are
Well,
really.
it's
Those
always a
are,
planet, but
is it up?
is it in our
Is
solar?
it
I
up?
know that's the thing.
Okay.
It's just a blurry thing. It's just a blur. Prove it. You know? Like no, but it
I'm
was
glad
in our
that's
solar
where we
system.
went
Now
with
it's
that.
not
Yeah.
because it's true. That's how a lot of
I
things
know.
are
I grew up being taught that it was a planet.
in our solar system.
Don't take that away from me.
Yeah,
Everything I knew as a child is a lie.
yeah. They
Unraveling.
they even named cartoons after it. Pluto.
So what happened? I don't
I
know if
don't
that's where he
know.
got his name.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the planet came first,
Okay.
if it's a planet.
It's not.
But it's also like the same thing with so I watch podcasts a lot and there is this person on who was talking basically about like how they hate that people think or do certain things the way they do it. And he was a scientist and he was talking about how like he was judging this other person like you're wrong. You're wrong. The way you're that's not how we come up with the information that we have and we've
Mm,
worked this long to come up with this information and now you're coming in with this little bit of time with no you've not done the schooling you've not done the whatever and you're coming here like you know but here's what's crazy because like whether he's right or wrong here's the crazy part he later then talks about how like up until the 1970s, everything mathematically was based on like this principle. And then they realized in the 70s that it was wrong. And then they changed everything about that principle. So he's literally saying like there's no new information and no one can come in knowing more than us, but then saying minutes later that that exact same thing happened.
yeah.
or everything they thought they based so many things off of was just all of a sudden changed. So if that's possible, I don't know. It's this like idea of being a little more open-minded. I think that's some of the solution. It's just like I think this is a why we have been blessed the way we have because we are a part of a 12-step program that like talks about all this stuff. Like through like step work we learn to like be open-minded, be willing, you know, be honest. And I love the four-way test with like Rotary where it's like is it the truth? Is it to fair to all concerned? Like these are questions we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
And then once we've asked ourselves those questions, then we like be ourselves. And I think that if we're loving people, it's okay. This is what I think the solution to all this is. If we're loving people to the best of our ability, our friends and our enemies, and everyone alike, like we don't have to give the same attention to them, right? But just in communication, if we choose to communicate, we communicate with love. Because if we're communicating in love and something bad happens or someone feels judged, the worst thing that can happen is like we get to lovingly apologize, right?
Yes. Ideally, yes.
Yeah, I'm not in some la la land where I think they're not just going to be like, go F yourself or whatever. Like, I
Right.
know that we
Oh,
have no control over that.
right. But we have to at least, at the very least, if we offend somebody, clean our side
Or
up,
set an
right?
example, like the principle of like, did we forget that like there's someone always watching? Our kids learn from our actions,
Mhm.
and it's like we're also setting an example and sometimes being vulnerable and being willing to just like work through that is sets a good example. There's so many good things that can come from loving, and there's nothing yet that comes from not.
Yeah. I think that's a lot. I'm taking extra long to I'm trying to process all of that.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it's so much, and
It's
this
a lot to
what
think about in an hour. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, yeah, and it's like this is why, this is a part of where the issue goes, is that the more time you spend trying to find truth in a topic, the more exhausting that topic gets, the more you don't want to deal with that topic.
Yes.
So it's like, at some degree, we have to just make a decision.
Good Lord, we do.
It's kind of like the higher power thing.
So what's the decision?
Yeah, it's a thing that we decide in a moment to do with some direction in mind.
And if the direction was just building relationships, right? Then whether or not we agree or disagree on shit it shouldn't matter.
Right. Knowing your why. That's what you're explaining right now.
Yes.
And basing the things off of your why. Like, do I want people to know I'm right? Because arguing might make that happen. If my goal is to just like love people and be in community with people, then that's never going to work, you know? So that's what I hear you saying. And that's really, really important is we have to like stop. That's why these rings help me when I look at them because we have to like get off autopilot and we have to stop and we have to acknowledge a moment and go like, okay, what decision do I want to make here? So the because if I respond with emotion, I'm making a lot of mistakes in my day.
Hmm.
And I responding in an emotion isn't always bad. But if we do it without first processing how to respond, that's when it becomes a big potential problem.
Yeah, and we think about, well, would I rather maintain a relationship with this person or grow a relationship with or some sort of connection with this person? Or do I feel righteous in
Mm-hmm.
my rightness? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do I have to argue or defend myself, whatever position is? Because I feel like in most cases in my life, right? If my goal was to maintain a relationship with the other person or some sort of connection, then the rest of that stuff just doesn't matter as much.
Well, not only that, but you're working against it. For example, like for you to be right, they have to be wrong.
Yeah.
And if your goal is to prove somebody wrong, that's not like working on a relationship.
It's not creating connection, that's for
No,
sure.
no. So I get why we do it as humans. I'm not judging. I get why we do it, but it's not feeding into anything healthy.
Hmm.
One of my favorite sayings is like, we can be right or we can have friends.
Yeah, or we can be right or we can be happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I am a firm believer that all of it is very real. It's like at some point we have to let go of what we believe to be true in the sense of like forcing that upon other people.
Yes.
It's important. What we believe is important to us each individually. And I think sharing it with the
Yeah,
people
but
who are close
yes,
to us and
what we believe or think is important, but it's not the most important, right? And I know that you know that, but I wish that everybody knew that. Like,
yeah,
hey, you're allowed to have your own thoughts and opinions, but that's not the most important thought and opinion,
for
right?
sure.
It's just not.
Well, and it's hard because it's like one of my favorite sayings too is like if anything you do is important, you are important. So if someone else is, let's say, are you the most important person? If you're not the most important person in the world, somebody else is more important than you. You don't know who that person is. So like, who's to say they're not more important than you? So
Does any of that really matter though?
that's
When
the
you
thing.
like you're talking
That's
about
the
them, it's like,
problem.
oh, who
That's the
cares? So
problem
who's
though.
fucking important?
Yeah, I don't either. What I'm explaining though is like,
Yeah.
well, that's the problem is once you've gone down that path, it's just this never-ending cycle of like processing information that has no truth to it whatsoever. And the only solution is to not go down that road.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing, man. That's how I work really hard to live my life very imperfectly, but I work very hard to live my life that way. And
And to be fair, you do a bang up job if you're not in your car.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, I just like I don't want to be perfect.
Yeah,
So
you gotta have some flaws. Kind of you turn into a ball of energy and just floating around. So you
yeah.
gotta have some road rage.
No, and I appreciate your compliment because I know that's what it is. B, I appreciate you doing it with humor because the humor is key for us to live a life that feels not so serious all the time.
Hmm.
Like life is serious,
Yeah.
but it's also like amazing. And we need to just take a deep breath and laugh.
Yeah. When I think about it, I just think about it sometimes like life is serious. But if I go through it always thinking about the serious side of it, then I'll miss a lot.
So much.
Some of the best moments we're just laughing about nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like, you and me in the car or me and one of the kids just rolling about something ridiculous. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The kind where like tears are just
Your stomach hurts.
mm-hmm.
You know you've lost a few
Those are the
calories.
moments,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah. They're so incredible. And this is again, it's what I talk to my sponsees about and stuff. It's like if our focus gets too narrow, we miss everything outside of it. Everything. So it's like it's great to have goals. It's great to have direction, but like it's my belief that as long as you're moving, right, you're making some ground up. Like no matter where you turn, you're walking forward.
Yeah.
And like this, oh my gosh, it just takes away so many amazing things.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're missing the miracles when we're getting locked in to all this like other stuff, the information and the politics and the religion. It's like just love each other and see what happens. Because I know that I've worked really hard to have that be a goal in my life, and it feels like it's working, and people feel not always selfless, but like people feel loved by me, and that's my goal.
Yeah. And you sure you're not always selfless, but you you do more things do you do.
There's
You do
dude.
more things for people than anybody else that I know. So even when you're always selfless, you do a lot.
Thanks, man.
No, thank you.
Yeah, this reality I get to live is a big time gift. And some of what I experience in my life, like when I've been traveling around speaking to these groups or telling my story or, a lot of the things that I've just been honored to do, um, is is coming from a place of like I've experienced the low of the lows, and now I'm experiencing what I believe to be the high of the highs.
Mm,
And like I have found myself in moments where like I've always wanted to be a motivational speaker, and I find myself on a stage in front of 2,000 people and doing it in a way that is like, people are crying and people are hearing me and receiving it. It's just so incredible. And then I can walk away because say I have to do that speech 3 times in one day. I walk away and I come back and I do it in a way that's just I'm worried enough about what people think this time compared to the other
mhm.
time where I'm like a little less genuine. And I just find it just so different. It's just such a different experience. And so, like, I don't want us to miss that piece. I don't want us to think ourselves out of being who we are. And that's why, like, I worry with you with your humor. It's like your humor is magical. It is, it is so incredibly infectious in such an incredible way.
Mm.
Nothing is all good or bad, right? So it's not always incredible, but for the most part, like it has such an incredible impact on people. And I don't want, I mean, even now I feel like you've swung too far the other way. So it's like, this is me communicating with you, something that's a little bit challenging in just the sense of like, my want for you is just that you work to not lose that part of you.
Yeah, well, I think timing, and we touched on this, right? The timing is important, and I think that, like, especially when I'm doing the trainings, that there's a lot of humor in there because I know that people, if I can make somebody laugh, and I figured this out because I had somebody come in and talk to me about employment or something one time. I don't remember what it was, some work source thing, when I was going to community college. Um, but he came in and he was talking. I wasn't very excited to listen to it, right? But he got me going. Like he was so funny that I'm like, wow, this is actually information that I wanna take, I wanna receive, right? And
Yeah.
then I wanna leave with it. I want it to go with me. And I try to do that when I'm doing the trainings, which I think has made me kind of dry in other areas. But I'll be honest, I hurt a lot less feelings. I hurt
Yeah.
people a lot less.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, and I think some of that is delivery, but I, yes, there are, this is the challenge, man. Is just like there is good and bad to every decision we make.
right.
And
Well,
you,
yeah, there's cause and effect, right?
yeah.
So I
And
don't think that everything has to be good or bad.
sure.
It's different.
Yeah. No, and that proves your sensitivity to it. It's like, it's this like, it's, it's so challenging because it's like so good that we have the sensitivity to people so that we're not bullying people and just like being hurtful. But we can worry so much about the impact that it makes on people when we have very little impact on how we actually affect people's decisions
Mm.
that it just becomes a weight instead of, so I've watched it you firsthand like become somebody who hurts people less, right?
Yeah,
In a lot of ways. And the with the humor, there I have less moments where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. Like so many less moments.
me too.
Like we're not gonna get canceled because of one thing you said or a thing you drew on a car or like whatever. But I also know that some of my greatest moments in my life were you and me laughing.
Right.
So it's like I think some of the solution, the answer is like remember making sure we have those moments.
Know when to let go
Yeah.
of professionalism and your need to be funny and your need to be right. And I, that might just be the the secret to all of it. It's just knowing to let go of whatever it is.
Yeah. And then being willing to do it, that's the, oh man, there's so much, that's the surrender of it. And it's just so important. So like, I don't want everyone to just stop picketing, and I don't want everyone to stop speaking their mind. And I want all of that. I want us to try to remember why we're doing it, focus on our why, and try to make sure that we're feeding into that direction as much as possible so that regardless of how people treat us, we can be happier people. And when we're happier, people want more of that. The happiness is infectious. And sometimes happiness is just not being negative. And so I mean, for me, it's just so big. So I think that's probably enough today.
Sounds fair.
I always appreciate hanging out with you. The trip made me I was reminded just how much I love you and how much you're my ride or die. And my wife is my best friend. But I just kidding, wife, you are my best friend and I love you so much. But I love my little brother very much. And my trips always remind me like how grateful I am for home, for you, for like just there's so many things that are better here. and
Hmm.
and I and I think that that can be the final note, like the thing that will help drive all of this, the thing that creates that is gratitude. I take a moment and I go, oh my gosh, this negative thing happened. Oh, but I'm so grateful that at home we don't have that thing, right?
Mm.
ending with Ending with the gratitude, and balancing out that thought so it's not just something negative. Makes life feel a lot better.
It makes life a lot better.
Yeah. Period.
Period.
.com. Love you, dude.
Love you, brother.